And we are recording. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the GAJ Podcast. You'll have to disregard my fiance walking into the bathroom behind me. Oh, yeah, we can see you. Don't poop.
Wash your hands.
Oh, Alex says wash your hands if you're pooping. Maybe wash your hands anyway, but. All right. So here we are recording another episode. We are on episode 6, and we still only have 3 subscribers. Nope, sorry. I need to take that back. I need to retract a comment from, I believe it's episode 3, calling out our baby sister for not subscribing and supporting our podcast. I need more light, don't I?
Well, technically, she wasn't subscribing at the time.
Technically, she wasn't subscribed at the time, but she did point out via text today that she is now subscribed on Spotify and I believe YouTube, which, by the way, yes, you heard that right. We are now on Spotify.
Oh shit, we're official.
We even have a weird logo. I totally made that up. So hope everybody likes it for now until we come up with something better. But let's get into it. I have a topic that's, John, you're going to have to hold back a little bit because I know you're fired up a little bit. We're going to talk about, let me see if I can do this right. Let me see if I'm cool about this. How cool I am. Tipping culture.
Oh fuck.
Tipping culture. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
a little bit spicy.
This is probably going to be something that we cover more than once. Probably not consecutive episodes, but we have obviously a member of our crew here in JR, and I have a fiance that's in the service industry as well. So
Quite a few friends.
Several friends. So we
Several.
might actually have a part 2 along the way, or maybe just a recoverage of this topic. But yeah, I think we're going to start off with tipping culture, and I think this is probably going to take the entire episode. Like I said, I'm going to ask JR to kind of hold back a little bit because we are going to get to his realm of this conversation, but I think we're going to start it with some easier ones, and that's typically going to be the service industry. So the question of the day is, how much should you tip? How much should you tip? So I think when we think about tipping and service industry, the first thing that comes to mind is when we go out to have a meal, fine dining, even just your chain restaurants in the suburbs, whatever it may be. You sit down with your family or your date, or in my case by myself because I travel and I have no friends that I travel with. I might just sit down by myself and, servers come up and ask me how I'm doing, ask me for my drink order, bring me my drink, and then ask me what I'd like to eat. So in that respect, servers, generally speaking, in the U.S., because I know it's different overseas, the U.S. make what's called a server wage. So that's different than minimum wage. I think a server wage, I'm not sure what it is anymore. I think it's still $2.13 an hour, $2.13. And a large part of their earnings for the year is in tips. So I think the pretty standard answer to your standard tip is going to be, I think the old school way of thinking is going to be 15%. I personally think the bare minimum for mediocre service is 20%. That's my opinion. I'm also of the opinion that tipping is above and beyond that should be based on merit. So the quality of service, the quality of the experience that is delivered by the service provider.
Mhm.
Okay. So again, we're going to start out with restaurants. For me, bare minimum, this is for average service. If they're just shitty, that might go below that minimum. But if they deliver average service, I think 20% is the bare minimum. What say you? Let's start with Alex.
It helps when they give you options on the receipt. So they'll say, 15% is this much, 18% is this much, 20% is this much, 25% is this much. So you go, okay,
Sure.
so how good was your service? A, B, or C, or where you go like high, medium, low, then you typically choose based on that.
Okay.
I like
I
that.
actually like that too. I like having the options because then I know exactly what the amount is. I don't have to do calculations. What about you, Johnny? What's your method for kind of fine dining or restaurant service, I should say?
If I go out, I don't go out, right? Like I typically eat at home anyways. So
Yeah.
or I eat like fast food, right? Where there's no tipping involved and it doesn't give you the option
Sure.
to tip where I go.
Unless you go to
We're going to
Subway.
get to that. We're going to get to that one too, but
Yeah.
just
So
your general restaurant service, sit down meal.
I go and I'll spend anywhere between like 50 and like $80 on myself. If I go out and I'm like, I haven't been out in like a week or two, right? And
Yeah.
like I'll go sit down and I'll go get sushi or I'll go get something like a steak and a drink or two. And I'm tipping, 20% and 25% maybe.
Yeah.
Typically I'm talking with the person that's serving me too. So like if they're actually engaging back with me, they're getting 20 to 25% right off the top.
Yeah. I'm with you. And I think that's where the merit part comes in, right? If
Mhm.
they're providing just the bare bones service, it's not bad service, but it's just you're kind of running the mill. That's where I'm at 20%.
Mhm.
If they're engaging, because to me, and I've had some debates with my lovely fiance Ashley about this. To me, there is a merit aspect of this. And my tip personally is based on how much above and beyond that just bare bones service I get. That's what's going to make me tip more. The experience that I have at that restaurant with that server is what's going to motivate me to tip more than just your 20%. Now, I will admit it's usually a little bit more because I take kind of whatever the dollar figure is. Let's say just for easy calculation, it's $99.58. I'll round up to 100. Take 10% of 100 is $10. Double that to get 20%, so $20. That's typically how I calculate it. If, to Alex's point, they don't have the options listed on that receipt. But I'm right around that 20 to 22-ish%. Upscale service, especially, there's your Chili's and what else is there? Texas Roadhouse, your chain restaurants. Typically, I'm going to be in that 20 to 25% range.
Right.
If I'm going higher end, fine dining, I think the one that's going to be a little more well known nationally is like Capitol Grill. Your fancy steakhouses where they have like the award-winning chef, that type of deal. Typically, they're gonna attempt to deliver a higher level of service. They're gonna ask you how your meal is. They're gonna tell you about the meal and the ingredients and how it's cooked. Maybe even
I think
a
it's
little bit about the chef.
expected there though. Like, if you go to a Capitol Grill or you go to McCormick and Schmidt or you go to Ruth Chris or you go to like a fine dining place, you expect that service. You expect when you pull up and you valet your vehicle that person comes and opens the door for your vehicle. Like that's all expected because you're going to tip your valet and you're going to tip your server, right?
Yeah.
And 20%ish. You're going to start with that as the baseline, right? Like if they end up sucking balls, if they fuck up, if they don't bring you drinks, if they don't give you recommendations, ouch, come on, man.
Yeah.
15%, 10%.
I get. Yeah, I think
That's
you and I might
that can still be like $40 in certain cases.
Sure.
On, a nice date night.
You get a bottle of wine. You get the specials, whatever. Before I go a little further into my opinion on that, Alex, what's your take? This is not just your run-of-the-mill chain restaurant. This is your upscale dining experience. In fact, you for a short period of time worked at Supper Club in our hometown, the Paragon. What was kind of your take when you were doing that job?
I was 16 years old, so I was dumb as shit. So I don't know what the fuck was going on, dude. And I only kept that job for a few weeks.
Sure.
They always give me a cheeseburger. But anyways, if it's a fancy restaurant, yeah, it's going to be at least 20%, depending on how it is. I mean, I don't go out to fancy restaurants because I'm classless. But situations in which I was at a fancy restaurant, yeah, it's going to be around 20. If they give me good service.
Yeah. But you go in with the expectation that you yourself are going to tip. Like, you don't go ever into a nicer restaurant saying, I'm not tipping. Right.
Yeah.
Like you choose to not go out.
You know, you're going to drop some coin if you're going into one of those restaurants.
Yeah.
You're not going into a McDonald's or to a donut shop or, wherever.
Right.
Yeah. I guess where I'm not necessarily so much off from you guys, but if a sit down restaurant to me, I agree that a higher end restaurant, you're going to expect a little bit more right out of the gates. They're going to explain all the specials, explain some of the drinks or whatever.
Give a recommendation. Ask questions. Have you been here before?
So,
biggest question ever. Have you been here before? Oh my God. Crazy.
Now it depends on how they, it's one thing explaining the specials. It's another thing to go above and beyond and, ask more questions. What do you typically like? Are you a steak fan or are you a chicken fan? Are you a carnivore, a pescatarian? Are you vegetarian? One really important one that quite frankly docks it for me is if they don't even ask about food allergies. I think that's so important anymore. I think any server in any restaurant, any sit-down restaurant should be asking, are there any food allergies at the table? Because that's quite frankly, that's
I've never been asked that ever.
Really?
Not one time. I can see how that would be a great question to ask though. Just like as you start taking drink orders and stuff, or you start taking the meal orders, are there any food allergies that we need to?
Yeah. And maybe it's not doctoring, but it's an instant upgrade in my experience level because, as you guys know, Ashley, when we started dating, she was, I don't know how much you know about this, but we'd go out some places and she would get sick all the time and we couldn't figure out what it was until we realized she took a food allergy test. And as it turned out, she had an allergy. She was allergic to soy. And when you're allergic to soy, you quickly learn just how many things have soy in them. If you like to eat Wonder Bread, you're eating soy. It's in everything. A lot of restaurants, a lot of the fryers, soy oil. I don't think people realize that because I know I did. And I went from paying $2 for a loaf of bread to $6, $7, $8 for a shorter loaf of bread. Now, granted, it tasted better, but it was also just a loaf of bread that I was putting lunch meat on. So when a server asks, "Are there any food allergies?" it's an upgrade because they're thinking ahead, and I like that.
Yeah, those questions are important. I agree.
Yeah.
They also don't want people dying there.
Yeah. And I guess that's why I'm of the opinion every server probably should, for the sake of the restaurant. I would think, honestly, the restaurateurs should train their servers to ask at every table because that's just protecting the business.
It could even be one-upped with how a lot of restaurants have hostesses. Have that be the question that comes out of the hostess's mouth. No, you don't think so?
I don't necessarily agree with that. Hosts and hostesses don't get tipped. They do make minimum wage. Sometimes they might get a little cut, but that kind of depends on the restaurant and if they get to have a little more control over how many tables a server gets. But that's a completely different thing.
I want to give a shout out because I went to an Italian place the other day last weekend when I was doing Lyft and watching my buddy's house out in Temecula and Murrieta area.
That's far, dude.
It was pretty far, yeah. I went to an Italian restaurant called No-No's, and it was probably the best food I've ever had, like Italian food. and there was one server for like 20 tables, and he had his ass handed to him, right? So the hostess came up and said, I apologize. Our server's going to be with you as quick as he can. Can I get your drink order? Can I tell you? I'm going to tell you the specials if you're interested. Would you like to hear the specials? Yeah, sure. Tell me the specials. Let's go. So when the server came, and the server passed by me like 3 times, he was like, I'm so sorry. I'll be with you as quick as I can. Every single time he walked by, he made eye contact, right? And like, even though he didn't get to have that personalized experience like that you would kind of prefer a waiter or waitress have, like
Sure.
he touched the table and made sure, like, right. And so when I left, I was feeling really good. I made sure to tell him that, like, even though he was passing by, the food was great, he did a great job. And the hostess grabbed my drink order, brought me water out instead of like the waiter doing it. It was dialed in. Like, they knew what they were doing. So I was by myself, so it made me feel better.
That tends to be a pet peeve of mine that Ashley and I tend to argue about every once in a while.
What?
I want to be acknowledged. All you servers out there, I see that you're busy. Just acknowledge my presence, even if it's simply something as easy as, I'm sorry, I'm a little slammed right now, but I will get to you as soon as I possibly can. I'm sorry. Hey, you just upgraded your tip.
Yeah, that hostess doing that and the server making eye and acknowledging me. I think I spent like $65. I left like a $35 tip.
Yeah, because you see that they're slammed, but if they at least acknowledge you, I like to be acknowledged if I'm in that restaurant, and just them telling me they know I'm there and they realize that they're kind of slow getting to me.
Yeah,
you know, I can see them running around. We can see you. And those of us that are intuitive enough know that you're slammed and that you're doing your best. So just a little bit of acknowledgement, instant upgrade and tip. We see you running around. We know you're busting your ass, and I want to reward you for that because you were bending over backwards to provide a good experience for me without letting down the rest of your tables at the same time. So that's my personal opinion on it. It's an experience. Now, those are sit down restaurants. Those are your chains. Those are your fine dining experiences. I think what we've seen in the last year to 2 years is, a lot of fast food restaurants, those owners acknowledging that they should probably be paying their employees more. That's a completely different argument. That's one we might cover later, but that's neither here nor there. There are areas where, you guys, JR and Alex, live in California. A McDonald's employee in California making the same wage as a McDonald's employee here in Missouri. That's a tough one for me because the standard of living, the cost of living is so different. It's hard to expect a McDonald's employee in California to be able to afford just an even mediocre lifestyle on that kind of wage. So I do agree. They should be paid more. I don't know how the restaurateurs, the owners of those fast food chains, go about that, but I quite frankly take offense to the notion that I should be tipping a fast food employee. I'm sorry, especially when the service actually delivered is becoming more automated. When was the last time you went through a drive-through?
I went through a drive-through yesterday at the Habit, and it's just like a burger place. They have a fish option and they have a veggie option. I drove through the drive-through and they shoved the thing out, the credit card reader. They didn't even take my card. They shoved the credit card reader out to me for me to do it, right? And they said, choose which one you'd like. And it was the tip thing. And it was like 10, 15, 20%, 25% no tip. And the no tip option didn't work. They made you press the red button if you didn't want to tip, so that you had to have an interaction with the person to tell them that you don't want to tip. That was
that's shady.
I respect the strategy by the employee because
that's not the employee doing the software thing.
Yeah, but they're being told by their bosses and their owners that if you want to make more money, earn tips, ask for tips. You know, it sucks because I agree with Alex. It's totally shady. You chain restaurant owners, you franchisers, you're cheap. You're cheap.
Well, now there's something called Yelp, and you can put complaints like that on there.
And I do. I do make a concerted effort to leave positive reviews when I have a positive experience because I'm very, very on top of it. If I have a terrible experience, I will be on Yelp, I'll be on Google reviews, and I'll be on Twitter pretty quickly. I try to be fair.
Have you run into
do you guys do the reviews thing?
I do sometimes. If I have a good experience, I leave a positive review. I don't like leaving negative reviews anymore because I feel like people just bitch so much about everything in today's world that it doesn't help anything. And if all anybody ever sees is negative feedback, then they're gonna have you're just gonna get more negativity out of it. So I strongly am opposed to negative feedback.
But that depends on how much they fucked up too.
Also,
if they're total twats, then you're gonna be like, okay, jump it on Yelp and Google reviews, and you're gonna hear it.
Yeah, if I go to Chipotle 6 times on, I order Postmates, and I ordered Chipotle when I was still living in Memphis. I did it like 10 times, and I ordered guacamole with my burrito. I got guacamole 1 time.
Oof. Wow.
They charged me for it every single time.
That would annoy me.
So I to leave a review was a very difficult process. So like reaching out to Chipotle for that one, I was just like super annoyed. But it's a combination of the Postmates person not checking the order and the Chipotle people not fucking doing the right.
Yeah.
Like following the order as well.
I post pictures. I post them on Twitter. Again, I'd post them on Twitter, Yelp, and Google reviews about my experience. I do try to be fair. So there's a McDonald's that I typically go to, and I have given rave reviews. I've even told friends I love going to the McDonald's. It's just across the river on Arbor Road, Johnny, if you remember that one.
Not the one off Prospect?
No. But yeah, I like going to that McDonald's because for some reason they're just always in a good mood. They literally deliver service with a smile, and I love it. And they're always upbeat. They are cordial and engaging. And
that means they did something nasty to your food. Laughing at you.
It's just going through the drive-through. It's not. I'm not.
You gotta slam this on Twitter. Give it a try.
Now, I did have an incident.
You're a big podcast guy now.
Yeah. Right. I did have an incident though where we got McDonald's, we brought it home, and I think it was a double quarter pounder with cheese. It was severely undercooked. I took pictures. I left a review. So my review was this. I posted it, said McDonald's didn't quite get it right tonight. I think it was this McDonald's is typically on point, and I love going there. They're a little bit off the mark tonight. That's the way I put it, right? And I actually got
better.
I had not even the owner. I had the owner's lawyer reach out to me because it was an undercooked burger, right? So now there's I think they were trying to see if I was looking to sue, right? Because did I get sick? Because that's what they asked me. They actually called me and asked me. I said no, I didn't get sick. I didn't finish it, but I wanted to make sure it was clear. Like, hey, I am gonna. I think we lost Alex.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
All right, hold on. I hit a cable. Just keep going.
Keep working. So when I talked to the lawyer, I wanted to explain, hey, I don't want anybody to get in trouble. Like, you guys are changing processes, trying to be more efficient. Quite frankly, the crew you hire at your McDonald's is typically on point and they are happy to be there. Like, I feel good when I go to your McDonald's. I'm going to go back. I don't think anybody deserves to be fired. I think just a little bit of additional training so that they know intuitively, like, even though they're following the processes that you put in place, they can take a look and maybe know that the burger isn't quite cooked enough. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. They were kind enough to give me a few vouchers for some free value meals, in place of a lawsuit, I guess. I don't know. But my number one priority was I wanted it to be clear that nobody purposefully there ruined my food. They provide an excellent level of service for most restaurants, let alone a fast food joint.
Yeah.
They just happened to miss the mark that night. No big deal. I left my review. I tried to be fair about it, and I actually have since left positive reviews just to make sure that I'm being fair, because I do think they do a great job there, that crew at that McDonald's. Kansas City, Armour Road. If you're in the area, check them out.
Yeah.
I think Alex is still working on. Oh, nope. I just have to add him. There we go.
What's up, brother?
Hey. Anyway, I think the consensus is
positive feedback. Make sure you tip.
Provide positive feedback.
Unless
I'm not tipping at your fast food restaurant. I'm not. I'm just not. So let's move into a different realm. I am going to get to yours, Johnny. It's probably going to be a little bit last, but something that I am terrible about remembering: hotel stays. Do you guys leave a tip for housekeeping at the end of a hotel stay?
Nope. And I take the towels. I usually forget.
You're not on your mic, Alex.
If I
if I stay for like a night, like I'm just driving through, stay at a hotel, keep it moving, I find the cheapest hotel, I go in, I do it, and I don't leave a tip for that. I didn't realize I was even supposed to. But when I do go and stay for like a week somewhere, I do leave like $15 or $20 on the counter after I leave.
Yeah. Alex,
but for those one night stays, I'm trying to. I never realized I was supposed to tip for those. So whoops. Yeah. Now I feel like an asshole because of how I feel about the later topic that's going to come up.
I wish I remembered when I'm traveling for work, and I'd be like, "Yeah, I'll fucking tip them $50. It's expensive to the company."
Right.
I've never been able to expense that tip, but yeah, I'm with Johnny. I'll be honest. One night, I'm probably not leaving a tip. Yeah. Once I stay for more than one night, I try to do $5 a day. $5 per night.
I also have only stayed in like one hotel in the past like 2 years, maybe 2.
Yeah. I do have a few stays, and I mean, they're so. Here's my thing about one night stay. If I checked in early, yeah, I'll probably tip, because I probably spent a lot of time in there working whatever because I needed to be there for meetings the next day. If I got there at 10, 11 o'clock at night and I was gone by 8 o'clock in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm sorry, I'm probably not. I wasn't even there long enough to leave a sweat stain in the bed. I wasn't even there long enough to fart in the bed. So I apologize. I don't know that that's the right thing. So for you housekeepers out there, hotel housekeeping crews, you do a fantastic job for the most part. For the hotels that I stay at, I apologize if I'm there for less than 12 hours and don't leave you a tip. That's probably not right of me, I will work on improving. But I think we're all on the same page, right? So if you're there for multiple days, especially if you're on vacation or like at a resort, you got to leave a tip, right? Because you're,
Or like based off of like, did you leave trash? Are you making them actually clean everything in the room? Like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously they're supposed to be doing certain things, but you sometimes leave more work for them. So I also tip.
I think that's a great comment.
That's why it's like if I'm staying at some place for like 3 to 4 days, like the whole weekend even, then I leave the $20 or I leave the $15.
I think that's a great comment. Be cognizant of your actions. Know what you're doing. Know how much work you're creating for somebody. And look, if you're there, you opened up your suitcase, changed, went to sleep, woke up in the morning, showered, and got out of there. Okay, fine. But if you left a bunch of trash, I think that's a great comment, and that's something I am going to keep an eye on for myself. How much work am I creating for the housekeeping crew? I think this, but even if it's a simple one night stay, I agree with you, Johnny. I think we should all
start leave
at least that $5 tip.
Why are you leaving so much trash after a one night stay? Like, how fucking dirty are you?
Some people do. Some people go and they smoke.
I guess if you eat, you bring
drink.
Alex, you'll appreciate this. Last time I was staying in St. Louis, I got all the White Castles, baby.
Nice.
And think about how much trash that was. So, yeah, I did. I think I actually did
10-pack
$5 that time.
Was it 10-pack
I
of
think I had a
burgers?
10-pack, a 10-pack, some fries, and I think I got like some chicken rings for free. I'm not even sure. So I had a lot of trash. I'll be honest. I had a lot of trash, and I did leave a tip. Do you guys ever leave more? So I think the standard, from what I've read, is $5 a day. Do you guys ever leave more than that, or is that typically what you're on, or do you kind of have a standard if you stay longer than 2 or 3 days?
I think that's the question to the viewers. Do you tip on your hotel stays? How much do you tip?
Yeah.
Is it $5 a day? I think that's a great amount. I think that, if you're spending 4 or 5 days, or if you ask for extra towels or you ask for extra, whatever. Did you leave $20?
I agree.
Did you create a ton of extra work for that housekeeper?
So there's a few questions in there, guys. Make sure you comment below, if you ever get to this podcast, how much are you tipping?
Yeah, do you tip more if you steal the towels?
What's that?
Do you tip more if you steal the towels? Technically, you're just paying for the towels.
I think you're doing a disservice to yourself because
I think those are the best towels, actually. Those white hotel towels.
It depends on where you stay. I think it depends on where you stay. It depends on where you stay. So the higher end hotels, yeah.
Chlamydia towels that have been bleached 45 times.
I don't know if you guys, but I've had meetings in the small podunk towns, and the only hotel was like not the nicest hotel. I don't want to get into which brands are bottom of the barrel.
We should have another.
They typically have cheap towels. Yeah, that's going to come around again.
Hotel rankings.
We'll talk about hotels and vacations a little bit more.
Oh, cool. I was in Reno one time for work. My hotel room had a jacuzzi in it.
See, look, that
was
if they're keeping especially if you're there for a few days and you use that thing and they're keeping it like spick and span clean, like you got to leave a tip on that. I think.
Are you leaving stains on the bed sheets?
Probably.
Now, on the other hand, if I check into my room and there's anything disgusting about it, I'm probably not tipping. I don't care how long I stay there. I will give you an example. I checked into, I think it was a hotel in London. I was staying there for the weekend. I checked in, and I'm like, I went around, dropped myself off, went hung out in London for the weekend because I was working in Windsor.
Mhm.
And that night, I'm like, what is that smell? And I called it. I'm like, it smells terrible in here. I called housekeeping and said, it smells terrible in here. I don't know what's going on. So I left for a while, and it turns out somebody had shit all over their sheets, and shoved it in a drawer, and they never found it. So I had to deal with the smell. They cleaned it. They didn't even offer me another room. They cleaned it, and I had to deal with like that disinfectant smell for the rest of the weekend.
Dude,
I didn't tip. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry because look,
that's wild.
you find sheets soiled and after
that
you
that
let a
would
guest
fail
check
a
in.
health inspector test. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah, that would have gone over different here.
That's when you make a
in
phone
the
call.
States. Yeah. I think I complained about it after the stay, and I got some extra points, but
Well,
So you can stay in the same place again.
no. It was so that's when I was full on a Marriott member. I stayed at all Marriott branded hotels
the Marriott.
because I traveled.
Ooh,
This was like that 3-year period, Alex, where I was in London 2 weeks a month. So
Yeah.
it wasn't always the Marriott. It was like the courtyards of the residence inns, but it was always the Marriott brand, so I could get all the points. But I did not tip that stay. I don't even, and quite frankly, tipping culture in England and just Europe in general is very different than tipping culture in the U.S. Typically, even when I would go out to eat at a restaurant, the tip was more on the 10% side versus like the 20 and up because they make a living wage. Servers don't make a server wage in Europe. They make the same minimum wage as anybody else. So they
a lot of
aren't
people,
as
I think,
reliant on their tips as they are here in the
people
US.
don't know that there's a server wage, and they think that servers make $18 an hour plus tips, right? Or they think that the hotel people or like all these, they make $20 an hour. Have you seen these podcasts where like people talk about, and they bring in the people that are spending money at like hotels and restaurants and all these places and like going out to drinks on a regular basis, and they ask them like, what do you think the average wage is, and what do you think the livable wage is across the United States? Like, what do you think the average wage is? And they're like $200,000, $500,000, $800,000 a year. And it's like when they give them the answer and it's like $40,000, they're like, what? Like, especially the dating scene when they're like, yeah, 6 foot and taller, makes over $100,000 a year. Like the race that you're trying to date, like I don't think that, and I think that's a big problem in tipping culture is people don't realize, they don't have any idea about the person that they're tipping. They don't understand because they haven't worked in those fields.
I think that's fair. And hopefully, look, there's nothing wrong with being ignorant as long as you're trying to do the right things. Like ignorance is just, we all are ignorant in some way, shape, or form. And if you don't think you are, let's talk. Let's talk about it. Anyway,
get you on our podcast.
If you're ignorant to a certain something, anything, and you learn about it, take that lesson and become a better person. That's what that's for. Hotels. I think we've all stayed and didn't realize we were supposed to tip housekeeping. When I first started working in England, I worked in England for 3 years. I didn't know leaving a tip for housekeeping was a thing. So I've since changed that, but And quite frankly, I know I should be better because again, those one night stays where I'm there for, barely a few hours, I probably don't. I try to make sure my impact on the room is minimal though. Like I try to make sure there's not very much they have to do to get that room ready for the next guest. So anyway, hotel stays. Tip your housekeeping, especially if you've created more work than they should have to get that room ready for the next guest.
Don't Amber Heard in the fucking drawers in your hotel room.
And if you soil the sheets, just let them know. Don't shove it in a drawer. Come on. Now they should recognize that, but also as a guest, let's be better. Let's be better than that. Okay.
Why don't you just throw it away? Why do you have to stuff it in the freaking drawer? Like, this is no good anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw it away.
Yeah, I'm sure there was an embarrassment factor to it, but you know what? That's called accountability, folks. You did it. I went up to it. You're leaving the hotel anyway. You don't ever have to go back.
I've heard of shit in the bed. I've never heard of shit in the dresser, son.
Well, clearly they shit in the bed, took the sheets off, and shoved it in the drawer.
I'm sure it's happened in Vegas, and if it happens
Oh,
there,
yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's happened in pretty much any big city that has a bar district of some sort.
If you go to like Vegas pool parties, everyone's in the pool, everyone's drinking, no one's leaving to go to the bathroom. And water gets splashed everywhere.
Yeah. So one thing when we were talking about restaurants, I skipped over. I wanted to hit before hotels. Bars and coffee shops. Bars and coffee shops. So this is more you're out, you're having fun, you are picking up drinks at the bar, you're going back out to the dance floor or wherever. So we'll split that up. We'll do bars first. When you guys are going out on a night of drinking, how are you tipping? How are you tipping your bartenders?
Depends on which bar. If it's my main bar, I always tip like this is if I got like 2 or 3 drinks back when I used to go to bars. I just automatically tip like at least $10 just because I like the bartender.
Sure.
And a lot of times the bartender, you can tell the bartenders don't get tipped shit because sometimes especially if it's a younger crowd, they're not getting shit. So that's probably why they like me.
That's fair. What about you, Johnny? How do you tip your bartenders?
Pretty much along the same route. If it's like your regular bar, like we used to go to the Blue Line all the time, I would make sure that like, Ashley or whoever was taking care of us, was getting. Fuck, they made so much money off me. I should have got a credit card through the fucking Blue Line. But tip $10 to $15 to your bartender, and then if you're like ordering a shit ton of drinks or like you're going to a place that you've never been to and it's packed as fuck, like I walk up and I as soon as I make eye contact, I find the male bartender, or I mean, if the female bartender comes up first, great. But usually I try and grab the male bartender and I'm like, hey, can I get this, and this? And I do like a halfway decent drink order, like a couple drinks. And then I tip them like $20 right off the bat. Or like, if it's going to be a lot of drinks that I'm ordering, more. And then he knows that like I've already tipped him. And then I come back later. I'm not going to tip every time. But then when I come back for my last set of drinks, I'm going to tip him again.
Okay.
He makes money off me. For sure.
Yeah, so I'm a tab opener. I pay with credit card most of the time. I hardly ever carry cash. I try to carry cash when I'm in those situations because I do like to tip in cash instead of writing it on the receipt. And if you're a server, you
always tip cash.
Why that works, why that's better. But I'm not going to go into that because I'm sure we all pay our taxes properly because we're all afraid of
always
IRS.
tip cash.
But I do like to tip cash if possible. If not, that it is what it is, and kind of going back to the fine dining, we're all paying with credit. Most of us are paying with credit card anyway. But in bars, I like to, on the low side, I'd like to average $1 a drink. When we're starting to do shots and all that stuff, it goes up a little more because now I'm going to the percentages, because in the end they're going to get more anyway. And not only am I doing percentages, it's most definitely going to be more than 20%. It's probably going to be more of the 25 to 30% variety. If I'm a regular at, for instance, the Blue Line, because once upon a time I was a regular there, I'm probably tipping 50 to 100%. Especially
how about
if
this
I
one?
didn't drink that much. In
If
fact,
you
if I
order
only have one or two drinks, I'm
50 to
probably
100%.
like one or two drinks. Typically, I'm drinking beer. That's probably going to be $8, maybe $10. I'm tipping at least $10. Even if it's one beer, I'm probably tipping $10.
I agree.
If I'm regular. Really, anywhere.
Thank God we aren't regulars anymore. That was expensive.
Oh, dude, that was an expensive habit. Even when we were taken care of.
Dude,
when we were taken care of, it was expensive.
Here's the thing: when you're a regular, they take care of you, regardless. You get double pours. You get
they get better pours. I'll be honest. I don't know if. Well, we won't get into that. I do know when I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, the bar I was regular at was called Flannery's.
Uh-huh.
I actually ended up working there part-time on the weekends because I was going to be there anyway. Might as well make a little cash on the side. Well, when I wasn't working there and I was going in there drinking, it didn't matter how much I drank. I could never keep count. All I know is my bar tab, when I was an employee, just being a patron there, was $7. I don't know how. It was always I think it was always either $7 or $11. So in that case, I might not have known how much I drank, but I also know that I probably drank a lot. No matter what, I was giving them 20 or $30. No matter what, because in the end, I still saved money because I'm sure I drank plenty. They're telling me my tab is $11. At the very least I can do is throw down $30, maybe 40, $50, depending on the kind of night I was having. Because they weren't keeping track of my drinks either. They were just saying your tab is $7. So, but that's taking care of one of your own at that point. And I hope all of you servers out there do that for your fellow servers as well. So that's bars. How about coffee shops? Starbucks. We're going to Panera Bread.
I don't stay in coffee shops.
Nope. I don't go.
They even made one of the closest Starbucks to me, or one of the closest Starbucks. I mean, they even changed it so there's no inside anymore. They took out the tables.
Really?
So you can't stay in there now. I used to go there all the time and just chill there. And they're like, nope. You just order a drink, pick it up, go outside. Get the fuck out of here,
man. I
would do like $1.
So
because you're ordering like $8 drinks, so round it up.
Yeah,
but
I'm kind of it's kind of like the bar standard, $1 a drink.
Yeah.
So
if you go to Bougie Coffee, tip $1 or $2.
Yeah. If if I'm there with a customer and there's a couple of them, we each have a coffee, I'll tip one per drink. So there's 3 of us total, I'll tip $3. If it's like a Panera Bread and I'm having a meal, I'm just back on that.
It's fast food.
I still tip the 20%, because they do come around. They do take your empty dishes. A lot of times I'm there getting some work done, so I might be there I might take up a table for a couple of hours while I'm having coffee and a bagel. So I do try to tip there because they do come over, they clear my empty dishes. They'll ask me if there's anything else they can get for me while I'm sitting down working. So at a Panera Bread, I do tip more, especially if I have food.
I have tipped fast food workers a couple times. I have like 2 places that I go to on a regular basis that's nearby me. I've been going to this Del Taco over here since I was a little kid. And some of these guys have been there for a really, really long time. And like I've acknowledged that a couple times and kicked them like a 20 here and there.
That's cool. I like that. That's kind of getting back to,
it's a regular.
Becoming a regular. It might not be a bar. It might not be a fine dining experience, but if they're taking care of you, I'm good with that. And I've done that before where I'm walking into, even if it's just a McDonald's and it's the same people that recognize me and they go above and beyond. They go a little extra. If they know I'm just taking it to go, they might give me like an extra coffee. Yeah, I'm gonna tip on that.
If they recognize you at McDonald's, you probably go to McDonald's too much.
Well, I'm a coffee drinker in the mornings.
Oh, that's what you get. That's what you're getting.
I get in my car every day, so sometimes I do hit the same McDonald's, Panera Bread, whatever. More than once in a week. That's just getting in my car and going. So, yeah, they will see me, and sometimes it's either just a coffee or it might be a coffee and a sausage and egg McMuffin. And, it might not be just an extra coffee. It might be, hey, we made an extra one. Do you want it? Sure. Thanks. So I might be on my way out the door already, but next time through, I'm going to have a couple bucks ready for them. So I'm okay with that. I'm not going to tip at a fast food joint, but going back to where you're a regular there and they go above and beyond, they give you extra. I'm okay with that. I'll throw a few extra bucks down every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So we've talked about chain restaurants. We've talked about fine dining, bars and coffee shops, fast food restaurants, even, and then we got into hotel stays. So let's get into something else.
Strippers.
I can't participate in that subject because I've never been. Anyway, no, let's get into transportation. So I want to start off with public transportation and bus fare or train fare. This is going to be more applicable in areas like Chicago, like New York,
Los Angeles.
Does Los Angeles have a train system? I don't even know.
Yeah,
well, I guess we have buses. Okay.
I was up in Santa Monica for a while, so I was taking the commuter train from Orange County into downtown LA, then taking LA Metro from downtown LA out into Santa Monica.
Ooh.
You will see some shit out there.
Yeah, I bet you will. So
just keep walking. Keep
your
looking forward.
Your train conductors, your bus drivers. Do you tip? I'll be honest. I don't know. I don't think I ever have.
Dude, I'm just trying to avoid bullets, so I'm getting out of there as soon as fucking
trying to move
possible.
fast. That's fair. That's fair. There's a safety and self-preservation aspect to that reasoning. I'll be honest. Public transportation wise, probably not. What about your taxi drivers? And I want to start with taxi drivers as opposed to ride sharing. That's a good point, but let's back up. Let's say there's still taxis around. Do you guys tip your taxi drivers? JR might not even be old enough to have.
I've been in the taxi like 3 times, and my parents took me in the taxi. And I was going to Texas at the time, so I went to go visit my grandma, and we tipped the taxi driver. My mom did.
Yeah.
I think
fare was super expensive, and she tipped on top of it still.
Actually, I was in a taxi last year when I flew into O'Hare in Chicago, and I was waiting on my Uber, and of course traffic was terrible, so the Uber is going to take forever to get there. And the taxi just waiting right by me, so I just went, just going to cancel my Uber and jump in one of these.
Yeah. Yeah, path of least resistance.
And it was a blizzard. It was a blizzard. I flew into a blizzard, drove in a blizzard. I'm pretty sure I tipped.
Blizzard conditions. It is Chicago. They are used to that stuff, but I still hope you tipped when it was those kinds of conditions.
It was bad. The driver said, "After I drop you off, I'm done. I'm going home. This is bad."
Can't blame him.
He was waiting there for his last ride. He had contemplated that for a while.
Yeah,
everybody.
Like, I just want to go home. I need somebody, anybody. Hopefully, it takes me in the right direction.
Live another day.
I can't blame him for wanting to have an opportunity to wake up in the morning. So, there you go. All right, Johnny, let's talk about it. Ride sharing, Uber, Lyft, whatever the case may be. Do you tip your drivers?
What is a good
That's
place
the
to
question.
start in this one?
So wait,
the answer is
Johnny. I want you to go last because you are a
I have a hot take.
driver.
I have a hot take. I'm gonna cook.
You are a rideshare driver.
Yeah. So
Alex and I,
if you let me get started, I'm gonna start cooking.
We're just patrons. So, Alex, I'm gonna have you start ride sharing.
Well,
Uber's
for a while,
do you tip?
For a while, you couldn't tip on Uber. You could only tip on Lyft. And around that time when you couldn't,
that was at the very beginning.
Yeah, around the time when you couldn't tip on Uber, Lyft kind of kicked me out for some odd reason. Something happened, and this is when a time when I was working for a company, a very big company out of Japan, that invested like $1 billion into Lyft, and somehow a Lyft project entered into my project backlog with no details on it. So I was like, okay, that needs some explanation. But somehow my Lyft account got frozen, and to this day it still doesn't work. I'm still trying to fix it.
Oh,
but Uber, yeah, Uber now you can, but I don't take Uber much anymore because I just don't go out. But if I do, and the driver doesn't spend the entire ride on a call, which is really fucking annoying, then I tip.
I do too. So there at the very beginning of rideshare, I didn't know how to. And quite frankly, I used Ride when it became a little more a regular thing. And you had to do it like right after the ride. Dude, I took them home from the bars. And if I wasn't thinking about it, I probably didn't. I was really happy when you could open up the next morning and still put a tip in. Because then I could tip. Because I never liked not tipping my drivers. Look, ride sharing is a beautiful thing because we all drink and we don't want to drive home. And it made it way easier to call on a ride when you're ready to go so you can get home safely and not get behind the wheel of a car while inebriated. But you should tip. And unfortunately, at the very beginning, it was not the easiest thing. To Alex's point, Uber didn't even have a tipping mechanism, so you couldn't. Unfortunately, because I'm old enough that I used it before that was a thing, sometimes I still forget. Luckily, anymore, you can do it the next day still. So I do tend to leave a tip. I haven't used rideshare in a while, but Ashley did until she got her car just about 2 months ago. So we are rideshare tippers. I don't know what the standard is, though. I don't know what the standard is, especially when you take into account surge pricing. I get it. All you rideshare drivers out there, you want to drive during the surge pricing because hopefully people are tipping on a percentage. Or unfortunately, I'm willing to bet there's a lot of riders out there that when the surge pricing is steep, they probably skip that tip part. So Johnny, our rideshare professional,
Residential rideshare expert.
Tell us about tipping culture and the rideshare industry. What's kind of the standard, and what happens? What's the expectation as a driver when between the low fare times and the surge pricing times?
So Lyft's and Uber's policy is that tips are appreciated but not required. Okay.
Well, that's the basis of a tip. I mean,
right.
The whole premise of a tip is it's quality of service, right? So you're tipping based on quality of service.
Yes.
So there's gonna be one more thing I cover, by the way, after we get out through this rideshare stuff.
So, I expect to be tipped. I'm just gonna put it out there. I go above and beyond for my drivers. I drive a truck for rideshare, so that's a little bit different. You have way more space. Yes. You have more space than an SUV, so you have probably the most comfortable ride that you're gonna get. Okay. I have like video game systems in there for the rideshare people. I have drinks. I have cologne in there for them if they want it. I have, I don't know. Usually I'm making some sort of conversation with them. And if they're put off by me in any way, shape, or form, I shut up and you know what? You can enjoy the ride and I'm going to keep my mouth shut. But it usually, and I ask like what's appropriate or like what, their kind of expectations are. I like feel them out a little bit, right? Like, so I try and go above and beyond so that I can earn a tip off every person. Sure. The realistic aspect of this, though, is that only about 20% of my passengers have tipped since I've started. And so I've been doing this about a month. And I'm kind of disappointed in people at this point. And I think that people just kind of take the rideshare services for granted. And I don't think they understand what people are paid in the rideshare industry. So like you were talking about surge pricing and stuff. The driver doesn't always see that. So an example is I had a ride from Newport Beach to Huntington Beach, and the passenger called me all bent out of shape as soon as the ride kicked in, right? As soon as I accepted it, he was like, dude, how much are they paying you for this ride? They're charging me $85. They were paying me $24 for that ride.
Wow.
So they were charging the customer $85 and I was getting $24. And so I don't know how accurate the information is that they put, on the books for the drivers to see what actually is being taken out and divvied to insurance and expenses and all that stuff. Cause they're supposed to give you a breakdown of it, but $85 and I saw $24 of that. So he canceled the ride, told me where to pick him up, and I went and picked him up and he paid me $100 cash. So that was my best experience as a rideshare driver.
To you, sir. Kudos to you.
Yeah, that gentleman was an outstanding individual.
That's somebody who genuinely wants to take care of the person that's actually delivering the service. In this case, it was JR. By the way, we'll sidetrack that one in a minute, but yeah, that I like that. I can appreciate that because there's a decent amount of risk for both sides in that. JR could have been a shitty driver showing up in a tiny Toyota Corolla that was dirty. And, what is this guy supposed to do at that point?
Right. But, he called me and he gave me an opportunity and I took the opportunity. And it's not always the safest way to do it. And it's not always the right way to do it. And I wouldn't recommend doing that for hardly anybody. That area is a little bit different. I wouldn't do that in LA. I wouldn't do that in Chicago. I wouldn't do that in a downtown setting, probably anywhere. But I did it.
I agree with that. And that was actually an issue, a big enough issue. So I worked in England from 2000. 2004 to 2008. It totaled about 3 years, as far as halfway between and whatnot. But they actually had advertising, marketing campaigns against what they called minicabs. These were, in other words, this was still during the time of the black cabs and taxis and whatnot. Minicabs were dangerous, especially for ladies coming home from the bars. You know, they see what they call a minicab, which is an unlicensed taxi driver. They don't have the shield on their windshield. And yeah, it was a campaign because, you know, especially ladies were getting assaulted. You know, they were getting sexually assaulted, and in some cases seriously physically harmed, and even killed. So they actually had active marketing campaigns against people taking what they termed mini taxis. So yeah,
there's dangers in it for sure.
There are dangers, and in that respect. So again, kudos to you, sir, who took care of my friend JR here. One, I'm glad you didn't get into the vehicle.
Thank you for not murdering me.
And also, two, thank you for not being a serial killer yourself. So yes. there's inherent risk. So, you know, take that information and do with it what you will. I am of the ilk of, I do want to tip the driver. For me, it kind of goes back to the quality of service. The vehicle plays a part. I don't necessarily care about. It should be
cleanliness. It should be, you know, somebody being a little bit personable, talking to you. You don't have to, you know, if the vehicle's clean and the person is like making sure that you get to where you're going safely and is checking in with you, it's just like the same thing as a server, I think.
I'm gonna give a little list of things that matter to me, and quite frankly, is having a fiance that you use ride sharing on a daily basis. If your windows are open or your air or your heat is on, check with your customer. You know, it should be comfortable for them. If it's not comfortable,
yes,
you just hurt your ability to have a tip. Don't be on the phone, and especially if you're on the phone, don't use your damn speakerphone.
Oh God, yeah.
Quite frankly, those two things right there, if I'm uncomfortable and or you're on the phone, I'm not giving you a tip. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm just not going to give you a tip. I'll be honest, Johnny, the amenities, the waters, the video games, not really a thing for me.
Nope. And not for everybody.
Yeah, that doesn't add for me, but, you know, the speed at which you get me to my destination, and not just the speed, but the safety of it. So I like getting there fast, but if you're brake checking all the time, if you're weaving in and out of traffic so much that I'm about to vomit, not the right kind of speedy service to deliver.
Right.
Unless I tell you so.
Yeah. Sometimes people, actually a majority of people that get in and be like, I'm running late. Can you get me there fast? I was like, I can get you there fast. Yeah, I'll get you there. There we go. Hang on.
So, sometimes drivers.
Go ahead, Alex.
Sometimes drivers that ask me for directions. I'm like, dude, it's
it's not right. A lot of times.
Really?
The Lyft navigation is atrocious. It is terrible. It will take you through traffic in the worst ways. So, if your Lyft driver is not familiar with the area, or your Uber driver is not familiar with the area, be patient with them. Maybe.
Maybe I'm wrong on this, and I will accept the criticism if any of you out there want to deliver it. I hate it when the drivers don't know where they're going. Like, it's one thing that I get it. The directions aren't always right, because I have seen that. And if I don't mind them asking me, like, here's where I'm going to go. If you think there's another way more efficient, let me know and we'll try that. I'm okay with that. But if you just have no idea where you're going, and Ashley's had this experience more than once. They go the wrong way down a one-way street.
Ooh.
Oopsie.
One-way streets have signs. They say one way.
Yes.
Pay attention.
Yes.
Pay attention.
Your number one job as the rideshare person, as a driver, is to drive, right?
Yeah.
To be aware of the rules of the road, to follow the lights, the signs.
If I don't feel safe, you're not getting a tip. Driving the wrong way down a one-way street makes me not feel safe. I don't know about anybody else, but driving head-on into traffic is not fun to me.
I don't know if the app told them to do that or if they just fucked up.
I think they just fucked up.
I've had the app tell me to do like U-turns and stuff in areas where it's like a big no-no, but it's kind of like one of those things where you look around and there's literally no cars, especially like late at night when you're taking like bar traffic home, and like there's a you can follow the rules of the road and go all the way down an extra mile and a half to make the U-turn, or you can look both ways and make the U-turn right there. I'm gonna make the U-turn. I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm making a U-turn here. I'll tell them.
So there's an intuition aspect of this. Being an intuitive driver, bonus. That to me, like, that's a good thing. That's just me, because I still want to get to where I'm going efficiently. I might not be in a huge rush, but
hey, I'm gonna save us 5 minutes real quick. No.
yeah. I think that's just being smart.
Yeah, I'm usually cool with that from a passenger. I'm like,
you can look around and know you're not being reckless. I'm okay with that. In fact, that's probably adding to your tip. That's for me personally, maybe not for everybody. The last thing I want to hit on that.
Can I hit my hot take soon?
Real quick, I'm gonna throw one more in there just to get it out of there.
Strippers.
Conversation. Try to read the room a little bit.
Yes.
There are times when I get into a ride share and I don't really want to talk. Be okay with that. I'm the customer, so if I'm on the phone, don't be on a call. Don't try to converse with me if I'm on a call. If you
don't be driving extra fast if the customer's on a call. Don't be braking extra hard if the customer's on a call.
Yeah, I don't mind if you
engage
rattling,
but try and stop it from rattling.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, comfort. I don't mind it if you try to engage me and kind of take a hint and then stop talking to me if I'm not in the mood to talk. But if you engage me and I'm feeling particularly social, I love having a conversation, especially like, let's say it's a longer ride. I'm going to the airport. It's a much more enjoyable ride if I'm happy. If I get to socialize, the trip goes by a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
And my perception of it being faster just earned you an extra tip. Just saying.
That tablet thing that I have in my dash with the video games and everything, if I'm doing like airport traffic early 30 in the morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, I'll ask like, hey, where are you traveling? Like, where are you flying out to? And they'll tell me, and I'll be like, do you want me to throw the news on for that? Like, to see what the weather and stuff's like? Or like, and I'll put on the news to show like what they're flying into. Like, so, typically when people are like getting ready in the morning in like a family household, sometimes they'll like turn on the news just to see what the weather is going to be like for the day.
I do it every morning.
And if you throw that on, I throw that on there, and that's like kind of one of my little things that I do. Okay. And usually they seem to like that a lot. At least like the professionals that are traveling for work.
Yeah. You know what? I take back the amenities comment. That would add to my experience. I would actually tip for that. Yeah.
But it's reading the room, like you said. It's
and
it's asking a question. It's not being invasive. It's just
now
we're not even talking. You're just
not in the mood. It's okay. Mm-hmm. That's one aspect for all you aspiring rideshare drivers. You don't have to get it right the first time or the second time or the third time, but just be cognizant of it. If you're thinking about it, then you start to try and learn subtle hints so that you can provide a better experience, whether that is having a conversation or not having a conversation. don't be on your phone. Period. If you're taking in a passenger, don't be on the phone.
Yeah.
Super annoying. I hate it.
On
I hate
Uber, when you order a ride, sometimes I think it gives you the option to say
Quiet ride.
quiet ride. Yeah. Does Lyft have the same thing?
Oh.
No. There's a note section that you can leave a comment for the people. And this kind of goes into my hot take, if I'm allowed to go into it now. But,
go for it, Johnny.
On the notes, you'll see hospitals put like PNDN on it, which is like, it's like a patient release, whatever, doesn't need like assistance or whatever. I avoid those like the plague, because it's going to typically be somebody who's not familiar with using their phone. It's going to be somebody that's older because they're having a ride share called for them. And hospitals do not tip. They tip 0% out of every ride that they do. So if I am accepting a ride and I see that it's the hospital address, I've learned the hospital address is in the area, because Lyft knows that drivers know that if it says, you know, some of those little key phrases that are supposed to be in there, or if the name is in all capitals, that's somebody has called that for somebody else. Do not take that ride. You will not get tipped unless that ride is convenient for you and you are willing to have somebody that's coming out of a hospital who has been exposed to COVID, other like whatever's the flu, whatever's in the air at the time. Do you want that in your car? They're not telling you that's in your car. You're not being paid extra for that. You're not even getting tipped for that. So take that as a hot take. But the second one,
go ahead.
Oh, you want to comment first?
No. I think that's a travesty, because I think so. Rental car agencies do the same thing. Well, I know Avis does. They offer ride share to get you to their location or home from their location.
If you break down in a Hertz, they will call a ride share for you. I learned that the other day.
Okay.
I had somebody that was out here from France, and they broke down and they were in an area that I thought was going to be an airport run. And so I accepted the ride, and they turned out to be a great group of people, but they had more luggage than would have fit in any regular vehicle. They needed an XL vehicle, or they needed the truck, which luckily I had the truck. So they got lucky on that. So they also don't tip.
You just answered my next question.
Yep. Businesses do not tip.
That's a travesty. That
car dealerships do not tip, which huge thing for me. And I was asking Gerard about this the other day, and I decided to just kind of keep my mouth shut and we held it on for this, but
this is called being a professional, by the way. Go ahead, Jar.
Yes. So if you are providing a customer experience, right? And car dealerships have these things called CSIs, which is like customer service. What's the I stand for? It's like an indicator. It's the metric for car dealerships that the manufacturers hold them to, right? And if you're providing a great experience and the customer is going to leave a positive review, and then they get into a ride share where the driver knows that he's not going to be tipped, and they might be having a bad day for whatever reason, and they happen to go off about not being tipped by dealerships, what do you think the experience is going to be like for your customer? Like, I know that's not like their responsibility. It's the contract between Lyft or Uber and, you know, AutoNation or whatever car dealerships are doing these days. But I don't think that's an appropriate contract right now. I think that they need to acknowledge that.
Do you know the car dealership when you pick them up or before you accept the ride?
You have to know, again, it's address based sometimes. And then the other time is it's capital letters. The name is all capitals, or it says Tustin Auto Center or Irvine Auto Center or whatever auto center. You know, it might say the dealership. It might say GMC or something like that.
So I guess a follow-up question there is, and I just popped into my head.
Yeah.
They don't tip. No. Is there a standard fare are you going to get a standard wage?
It seems like a lesser fare than what you would get to normal.
That's what I would have guessed, because if they have an agreement with the rideshare company, i.e. Lyft or Uber, They're probably getting reduced rates
for doing other rides.
And therefore, the rideshare drivers don't get nearly as much for that ride because they're on contract rates. And not only are they getting a lower pay for it, they're not getting tipped.
So do you want your rideshare drivers educating your customers who are going to fill out a CSI survey, customer service index survey, to be educated on tips by your rideshare driver? I don't. And I don't educate them typically, and I haven't yet, but I feel the conversation is going to come one of these days because customers like to get in and ask the drivers, how the driving is, how much money they're making, where's the good areas today, what's going on. They ask about the business. And so it's really easy to just mention tips.
So I'm going to put up. So I have a question on there. First of all, we've asked a couple of questions, but this is one that I think is of particular interest. Should organizations like hospitals, like rental car agencies, like car dealerships, with contract rates, should they be providing a tip to the rideshare drivers? I personally say yes, but I'd like to get other people's opinions on it, and feel free to delve into that a little more with your comments because I'm curious. I'd love to hear other thoughts.
Or should it be based off of what the star rating is? If the customer leaves a 5-star review or doesn't leave a review and it defaults to 5 stars, like that's what happens. Can it be 25 cents per star? Can it be 50 cents per star? That's not a lot, but you know what? $1 more if you get $1 per tip and you're doing 10, 15, 20, I've done 50 rides in a day. So if you're doing 50 rides in a day, $1 on each tip goes a really long ways for the driver. Sure. And it gives the driver a sense of like accomplishment.
Yeah, I guess my only objection there is now you're trying to get into the things that us as riders don't really understand, so we don't know how that's. I think it needs to be in the agreement.
Right, 100%. 100%.
I
Not
will,
the driver's responsibility, especially when the dealerships are calling for a service for the customer. Right.
Right.
It used to be courtesy vehicles or a drop off or something.
Right. I actually got annoyed with a dealership that offered me a ride share when the original conversation was that when we were purchasing the vehicle, there was something that needed to be repaired. When we brought it in, we were going to get a loaner vehicle. Didn't get the loaner vehicle. It only took an hour in the end, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But the fact that they were like, we don't have a car for you, but we'll get you a ride share. Like, I'm not okay with that. But that wasn't the expectation that was set for me. Anyway, small tangent.
And the only reason I think that you and I feel so strongly about it is because we worked with dealership contracts once upon a time.
Yeah.
Right. So we understand a little bit more what goes behind the scenes, as far as business is conducted.
Hey, Johnny, can you rate the hospitals and the car agencies like you rate other drivers?
It rates the customer. And so I refuse to rate the customer anything less than 5. I've only rated two customers now. Less than 5. I rated one customer 3 because they brought their dog into my car. And I wasn't told prior to them literally getting in the car and not even asking me. And then there was dog hair everywhere. So I had to go clean the car afterwards. They basically left a mess.
That sucks.
And the dog like drooled in places. So I had to clean. And then the other one was,
did you know that you were going to pick up a dog?
No, I had no idea.
Mm-mm. Are there any rules within Lyft or Uber regarding pets?
If it's a service animal, you have to.
Okay.
You cannot discriminate against a service animal. Which I would let anybody get in my car with an animal. It used to be a work truck. Like, I'm not overly worried about it, but the fact that like there was like a bunch of drool on the seat and the amount of hair, it wasn't just like a little bit of hair. It was like a lot of hair. So
that sucks. We should definitely get in that. I think that's going to be a topic we delve into a little more in another episode. But I want to make sure. Do want to ask a question. I didn't really formulate the question very well on the banner here, but that was supposed to say ride share drivers. Sorry about that. So I think Johnny's got a fair point. When riders get in from the hospitals, from the dealerships, from the rental agencies, they start asking JR or any other rideshare provider about the business and what they're doing. I can't say they shouldn't be honest. It's just a conversation, and if they ask about tipping for those things, I have no problem with them saying, with you, JR, saying, you don't typically, you try to avoid those rides because the dealerships, the hospitals, they don't tip.
Right.
Along with getting paid a reduced rate because they're on contract rates. I don't have a problem with that. I would say, and Alex, I'm going to ask you to chime in here too. I would say just volunteering the rant would not be the way to go.
No.
So
And
again, in the comments, feel free to share your own opinion on that one. JR, before you go in, Alex, what's your take? What do you think? Rideshare drivers picking up from those places, knowing they're getting paid a smaller amount and they're not getting tipped. What do you think as far as them having the conversation, if it comes up, versus just saying, I hate taking these rides because I make very little money and I don't get tipped?
You need to figure out some other way of doing it. So I know it goes onto the rider's account, but there needs to be some type of, need to figure out some type of corporate account for these car dealerships or hospitals, just so there's some accountability for how they how they're compensating the driver and if they're doing it properly.
And I think it's that there are corporate accounts in place, some sort of corporate agreement, so that Lyft is saying, yeah, we will send drivers to pick up your customers and take them home or bring them to your dealership or rental agency or bring them home from the hospital, whatever. So in my mind, and maybe others feel differently, in my mind, that's on the hospital, the dealership, the rental agency, whatever organization, to take care of the drivers, not on the rider, because that's part of the experience that dealership, that rental agency is providing to that customer.
And there's misinformation even within the dealerships. I actually talked to a finance manager at a dealership out in Corona who had dropped off a vehicle to somebody in Newport Beach. And he was under the impression that the dealership took care of tipping in the app. And so I had the conversation with him. And I don't think they really care. But I feel like they should, because it's not them typically taking the ride share, it's their customers.
Right. They and the dealership should.
That's why they need a corporate account.
Yeah.
Well, I think they have a corporate account.
It is a corporate account, I think.
That corporate account doesn't add a tip on to those rides that they are paying for their customers.
Does that corporate account get rated though?
That's what what if it's not a corporate account and I don't know that it's not a corporate account, and I drop a bad rating on somebody that's not deserving of it, That's, I'm held to a standard as the driver where I have to maintain an 85% acceptance rate.
Yeah.
Otherwise I don't get my gas discounts and perks through driving with the app. So if I decline those rides after they pop into my thing, after I realize it's a car dealership, then I get penalized. Right. And so if the driver
on top of not getting tipped.
Right. Yeah. And then if the driver has a certain score, eventually they'll get kicked off the app. Right. And so it's not their fault, but it's I don't know the best way to communicate that, I guess.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
I like Alex's idea. If you leave a rating for that ride, it should fall back on the corporate account that they, and every ride I did, I'd say didn't get a tip. Didn't receive a tip, didn't receive a tip, didn't receive a tip. Like
you also don't know if you're
you
going to
lose a
be tipped
star
because there's a 3-day window that they can tip you.
Oh shit.
So I can't just like.
How much of a window do you have to leave a review on?
I think it's like 24 hours.
Customer.
I've never left. I've never changed a rating. But I think it's like 24 hours. It looked like it was set up so that you can't rate somebody for that. Like I can go back and look at all my individual ride history, but I can't like change the rating after it's been like a day or two.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that seems imbalanced to me. That's not, I don't know. That's just me. Yeah, I don't know. Man, I hope some people watch this because I'm curious to see what other people's takes on this are, what your opinions are, what your comments, what your questions are. If you have questions, throw them down there. This is, again, I'm going to throw out the disclaimer verbally today that we are in no way, shape, or form experts, qualified,
I'm an expert
qualified
Lyft driver.
experts. No, you're not. We're not qualified experts. We're not official sources of information. We're not certified reporters. I don't know, whatever you want, whatever you need. We are not experts in most, if not everything we ever talk about. But I am curious about this. We do have resources that have reasonable opinions. JR from the rideshare industry. We could bring my fiance on for the service industry, food service industry. Hell, Alex has a little bit of experience in the service industry. And I was a bar back. I don't know if you want to count that. I was a bar back and a bouncer. So I have about this much of the expertise of all those other people.
You also worked at Hooters.
I did work at Hooters. I was a short order cook. I was a short order cook. You are right.
She was a waitress.
I might have put the shirt on once.
His favorite color is orange.
I do enjoy orange. Well, look, we are a decent ways into this. I think we're about an hour 20 right now. Leave your comments. We'll revisit this in the future if we can get some comments. And I think this is an interesting one. I think a lot of people have different opinions. Yeah, I like this, and I want to revisit it at some point because,
or
I think we
if
should.
There's something that I can do to earn more tips for rideshare.
Yeah, advice, tips.
If it's something that I should be doing that you think I should be doing, I'll give it a whirl. I'd love to try another idea for like upping my tip percentage specifically. I would like to get 50% of my passengers to tip. That would be my personal goal.
So here, I want to hear from all of you guys, whether you are a food industry worker, whether you are a hotel housekeeper, bartender, or barista, rideshare provider. Did I miss anything? Just let us know. Like, what are your patrons? Restaurant patrons, rideshare patrons, fast food employees or patrons. Let's put it all out there. Let's have a conversation, people. On that note,
before we go, Johnny, one quick question.
Let's do it.
Drunk people you pick up in Newport and Huntington, if they're drunk, are they more likely or less likely to tip?
It's not about them being drunk or not. It's about their age. Typically, usually there's a demographic that doesn't tip. It's the college kids that don't typically tip. There's definitely, from what I've seen in my metrics as a driver, ethnicity. And maybe it's because of my ethnicity that other ethnicities don't tip. But yeah, definitely, I don't expect tips from any 18-year-old to 25-year-old because they don't tip, and they don't tip their bartenders. And every bartender that I've talked to in Newport and Huntington Beach, also agrees with that. So, but I love the drunk people. Honestly, I'll go pick up drunk people in Newport Beach all day long. They're some of the most fun people that I've driven around, except for the one that threw up. That one wasn't the best. But he did. I made him do a walk of shame with his bag of puke through the hotel, and it was like a $600 a night hotel. So,
attaboy.
He just carried that Target plastic bag full of puke right on through the lobby. Oh man, that made it worth it for me.
Awesome. On that note, guys, leave a comment. Let's keep this conversation. Let's have another conversation about this. If you're a patron who has strong opinions, if you're a service provider in the restaurant and fast food, hotels, rideshare, whatever,
or if you disagree with
let
us
us know,
entirely,
and maybe you can join the conversation. We'll get you on here, and we'll have another go at this. But in the meantime, take care of your servers, your bartenders, your baristas, your rideshare drivers. Take care of JR. We want him to be able to afford a better microphone, and he needs your tips to do that.
Right? Like,
take care of your strippers too. They need tips.
Definitely.
Also.
Take care of your strippers and bathroom attendants. I have to. Maybe we'll revisit that one at some point too. But
especially for stinky.
Anyway, for JR, for Alex, for myself, thanks for joining us for another episode of the GAJ Podcast. We will see you next week. Woo!